Think about how you use language in your daily life. Language is used for so many purposes to build connections, express opinions, or explain ideas. And sometimes you might want to use language to prompt others to respond in a particular way. Maybe you want someone to give you a recommendation or clarify something. In those cases, the way you phrase your words can affect how others respond. The same is true when prompting a conversational AI tool with a question or request. A prompt is text input that provides instructions to the AI model on how to generate output. For example, someone who owns a clothing store might want an AI model to output new ideas for how to market their clothing. This business owner might write the prompt, "I own a clothing store. We sell high fashion women's wear. Help me brainstorm marketing ideas." In this section of the course, you'll focus on how to design or engineer effective prompts to achieve more useful results from a conversational AI tool. My name is Yufang, and I'm an engineer at Google. I first became interested in prompting because getting useful responses from language models was time-consuming. Sometimes it was even quicker for us to do the work without the use of AI. I was inspired to help our tools be more efficient, not less. I'm excited to help you learn more about developing effective prompts. First, you'll discover how LLMs generate output in response to prompts. And then, you'll explore the role of prompt engineering in improving the quality of the output. Prompt engineering is the practice of developing effective prompts that elicit useful output from generative AI. You'll learn to create clear and specific prompts, one of the most important parts of prompt engineering. The more clear and specific your prompt, the more likely you are to get useful output. Another important part of prompt engineering is iteration. You'll learn about evaluating output and revising your prompts. This will also help you get the results you need when leveraging conversational AI tools in the workplace. We'll also explore a specific prompting technique called few-shot prompting. Writing effective prompts involves critical thinking and creativity. It can also be a fun process, and it's a very important skill to practice if you want to use AI effectively in the workplace. Are you excited to get started on prompt engineering? Let's go! It's helpful to understand how LLMs work and to be aware of their limitations. A large language model, or LLM, is an AI model that is trained on large amounts of text to identify patterns between words, concepts, and phrases so that it can generate responses to prompts. So, how do LLMs learn to generate useful responses to prompts? An LLM is trained on millions of sources of text, including books, articles, websites, and more. This training helps the model learn the patterns and relationships that exist in human language. In general, the more high-quality data the model receives, the better its performance will be. Because LLMs can identify so many patterns in language, they can also predict what word is most likely to come next in a sequence of words. Consider a simple example to get a basic understanding of how LLMs predict the next word in a sequence. Take the incomplete sentence, "After it rained, the street was." An LLM can predict what word comes next by computing the probabilities for different possible words. Based on the available data, the word wet might have a high probability of being the next word, the word clean, a lower probability, and the word dry, an extremely low probability. In this case, the LLM might complete the sentence by inserting the word with the highest probability of coming next in the sequence, wet. Or it might be another high probability word like damp. An LLM may vary in its response to the same prompt each time you use it. LLMs use statistics to analyze the relationships between all the words in a given sequence and compute the probabilities for thousands of possible words to come next in that sequence. This predictive power enables LLMs to respond to questions and requests, whether the prompt is to complete a simple sentence or to develop a compelling story for a new product launch or ad campaign. Although LLMs are powerful, you may not always get the output you want. Sometimes this is because of limitations in an LLM's training data. For instance, an LLM's output may be biased because the data it was trained on contains bias. This data may include news articles and websites that reflect the unfair biases present in society. For example, because of the data it was trained on, an LLM may be more likely to produce output that associates a professional occupation with a specific gender role. The training data that informs an LLM can be limited in other ways as well. For instance, an LLM might not generate sufficient content about a specific domain or topic because the data it was trained on does not contain enough information about that topic. Another factor that can affect output is the tendency of LLMs to hallucinate. Hallucinations are AI outputs that are not true. While LLMs are good at responding to many kinds of questions and instructions, they can sometimes generate text that is factually inaccurate. Let's say you're researching a company and you use an LLM to help you summarize the company's history. The LLM might hallucinate and provide incorrect information about certain details, such as the date the company was founded or the current number of employees. A number of factors can contribute to hallucinations, such as the quality of an LLM's training data, the phrasing of the prompt, or the method an LLM uses to analyze text and predict the next word in a sequence. Because of an LLM's limitations, it's important that you critically evaluate all LLM output to determine if it is factually accurate, is unbiased, is relevant to your specific request, and provides sufficient information. Whether you're using AI to summarize a lengthy report, generate ideas for marketing a product, or outline a project plan, be sure to carefully check the quality of the output. Finally, it's important not to make assumptions about an LLM's capabilities. For example, just because it produced high-quality output for a persuasive letter to a customer, don't assume you will get the same quality output if you use the same prompt again in the future. Large language models are powerful tools that require human guidance for effective use. Being aware of an LLM's limitations can help you achieve the best possible results. Hi, I'm Yufang, and I'm a developer relations engineer at Google Cloud. I am but a small part of a much larger team that focuses on creating useful prompts for evaluation and, to some degree, training of the models. I grew up in central Pennsylvania in Hershey, Chocolate Town, and enjoyed kind of math and sciences in high school, and then went to college at Johns Hopkins and studied biomedical engineering. When I graduated college, the company that I worked for had a very extensive training program, and they were specifically looking to hire non-computer science majors. And it wasn't like the normal kind of workplace trainings that we think of today. It was like a super compressed crash course. These days, we'd call it a boot camp or something like that, but that didn't exist back then. Prompt engineering is not something that necessarily will happen through intuitive use. Doing prompting properly is really going to help unlock the capabilities of these conversational AI systems for you. Anybody can type in a simple prompt and get a simple answer back, but that's not where things are really interesting, right? It's when you can talk to a system and get a very tailored and customized answer based exactly on your use case that things get really quite exciting. My advice for folks who are experimenting with these AI tools for the first time would be to not get discouraged if it doesn't produce the results you want initially. These tools aren't magic. and they can't read your minds, right? All they can do is take exactly what you tell them and then try to do the best they can. There's kind of what I think of as side context or implied context that you need to practice getting it out of your head. You want it to be long, you want it to be short, you want it to use simple words, fancy words, like these sorts of things that you know, but you might not know you need to write them down. I would encourage you to just try stuff. You can go wild with the experimentation. Try stuff. You can write a ton of information in, or just like write a little bit, then write a little bit, then write a little bit, and just see how it behaves differently. It becomes just this experimental system. And this process is fun. As you experiment with this and try new things out, you'll find that your fluidity and fluency with these conversational AI tools will be through the roof, and you'll want to keep trying different prompts. And who knows, maybe it'll have a huge impact on your life. Only time will tell. How can you write prompts that produce useful output? It's generally true that the quality of what you start with greatly affects the quality of what you produce. Consider cooking, for example. Let's say you're preparing dinner. If you have fresh, high-quality ingredients, well, you're more likely to produce a great meal. Conversely, if you're missing an ingredient or the ingredients aren't high quality, the resulting meal may not be as good. In a similar way, the quality of the prompt that you put into a conversational AI tool can affect the quality of the tool's output. This is where prompt engineering comes in. Prompt engineering involves designing the best prompt you can to get the output you want from an LLM. This includes writing clear, specific prompts that provide relevant context. To gain a better understanding of the context LLMs need, let's compare how a person and an LLM might respond to the same question. Suppose a vegetarian asks their friend, "What restaurants should I go to in San Francisco?" The friend would likely suggest restaurants with good vegetarian options. However, if prompted with the same question, an LLM might recommend restaurants that are not suitable for a vegetarian. A person would instinctively consider the fact that their friend is a vegetarian when answering the question. But an LLM does not have this prior knowledge. So to get the needed information from an LLM, the prompt must be more specific. In this case, the prompt needs to mention that the restaurant should have good vegetarian options. Let's explore an example that demonstrates how you can use prompt engineering to improve the quality of an LLM's output. Let's take on the task of planning a company event. You need to find a theme for an upcoming conference. Let's write a prompt to Gemini to generate a list of 5 potential themes for an event. You can use similar prompts in ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, or any other conversational AI tool. Now let's review the response. Well, this isn't what we wanted. We've gotten a list that seems more related to party themes than themes for a professional conference. Our prompt didn't provide enough context to produce the output we needed. It wasn't clear or specific enough. Let's try this again. This time, we'll type the prompt, "Generate a list of 5 potential themes for a professional conference on customer experience in the hospitality industry." This prompt is much more specific, making it clear that it's a professional conference on customer experience in the hospitality industry. Let's examine the response. This is much better. We engineered our prompt to include specific, relevant context, so Gemini is able to generate useful output. When you provide clear, specific instructions that include necessary context, you enable LLMs to generate useful output. Keep in mind that due to LLM limitations, there might be some instances in which you can't get quality output, regardless of the quality of your prompt. For example, if you're prompting the LLM to find information about a current event, but the LLM doesn't have access to that information. It won't be able to provide the output you need. And like in other areas of design, prompt engineering is often an iterative process. Sometimes, even when you do provide clear and specific instructions, you may not get the output you want on your first try. When our first prompt didn't produce the response we wanted, we revised the prompt to improve the output. The second iteration provided instructions that were clear and specific enough to produce a more useful output. There are multiple ways to leverage an LLM's capabilities at work to boost productivity and creativity. A common one is content creation. You can use an LLM to create emails, plans, ideas, and more. As an example, you can ask an LLM to help you write an article about a work-related topic. Let's prompt Gemini to create an outline for an article on data visualization best practices. The article is for entry-level business analysts. Notice that the prompt begins with the verb create. It's often helpful to include a verb in your prompt to guide the LLM to produce useful output for your intended task. The output provides a helpful outline for a first draft of the article. You can also use an LLM for summarization. An LLM can summarize a lengthy document's main points. For example, you might ask Gemini to summarize a detailed paragraph about project management strategies. We'll begin the prompt with the verb summarize and specify that we want the output to be a single sentence. Then we'll include the paragraph we want Gemini to summarize. The output provides a convenient one-sentence summary of the paragraph. While this example shows how you can summarize a single paragraph, you can ask an LLM to summarize longer text and documents too. Classification is another possible use. For instance, you might prompt the LLM to classify the sentiment or feeling in a group of customer reviews as positive, negative, or neutral. Let's prompt Gemini to classify customer reviews about a retail website's new design as positive, negative, or neutral. The prompt includes the verb classify to guide the output. The prompt also contains the reviews. In this example, there are 4 reviews. The output accurately classifies the first 2 reviews as negative, the third as positive, and the fourth as neutral. Consider how you could leverage an LLM to efficiently complete large classification tasks. Or you can use an LLM for extraction, which involves pulling data from text and transforming it into a structured format that's easier to understand. Suppose you have a report that provides information about a global organization. You can prompt Gemini to extract all mentions of cities and revenue in the report and place them in a table. Then we'll include the report in our prompt. Please be aware that you should not input confidential information into LLMs. But in this example, the report is not confidential. The output displays a table with columns for city and revenue. This presents the information in a well-organized format that's easy to review. Another use is translation. You can leverage an LLM to translate text between different languages. For example, you might ask Gemini to translate the title of a training session from English to Spanish. The output includes a variety of Spanish translations to choose from and explains the reasoning behind each translation. This information can help you choose the most useful option for your audience. Or you can use an LLM for editing, such as to change the tone of a section of text from formal to casual, and to check if the text is grammatically correct. For example, Gemini can help you edit a technical analysis about electric vehicles by making the language more accessible for a non-technical audience. We'll start the prompt with the verb edit and specify that the language should be easy for a non-technical audience to understand. After this, we'll include the technical analysis. The output provides a version of the analysis that an audience less familiar with the technical details can understand. This is just one example of how an LLM can help you edit documents LLMs can quickly customize the tone, length, and format of documents to fit your needs. One more use for an LLM we'll discuss is problem solving. You can utilize an LLM to generate solutions for a variety of workplace challenges. When planning a company event, for example, you could prompt the LLM to find menu solutions that accommodate the food restrictions of multiple guests while following a holiday themed menu. And here's another example. Let's say you're an entrepreneur who recently launched a new copy editing service. Let's ask Gemini to solve a problem related to the copy editing service. We'll ask for suggestions for increasing the client base. The output provides specific suggestions for reaching new clients, optimizing services, and growing the business. I love these ideas. Let's ask Gemini to draft an email so we can easily share these ideas with others. LLMs can help you brainstorm solutions for many different types of problems. I'm definitely excited by the variety of ways we can leverage LLMs when completing workplace tasks. It's a very important skill to practice if you want to use AI effectively in the workplace. Coming up, we'll focus more on evaluating output and iterating on your prompt. Have you ever created a presentation for a client or designed a website for your new business? If so, you may have used an iterative process to achieve your goal. In an iterative process, you create a first version, evaluate it, and improve upon it for the next version. Then, you repeat these steps until you get the desired outcome. For example, if you're developing a proposal, report, or other document to share with your coworkers, you might produce multiple drafts and make improvements on each draft until you are satisfied with the result. Taking an iterative approach is often the most effective way to solve a problem or develop a product. An iterative process is also effective in prompt engineering. Prompt engineering often requires multiple attempts before you get the optimal output. Most of the time, you won't get the best result on your first try. If you try something and it doesn't work, don't get discouraged. Instead, carefully evaluate the output to determine why you didn't get the response you wanted. Then, revise your prompt to try for a better result. Let's consider possible reasons you might not get useful output after creating a clear and specific prompt. First, differences in large language models can affect output. Each LLM is developed with unique training data and programming techniques and has different background knowledge about specific domains. For this reason, different models might respond to similar prompts in different ways and might fail to provide an adequate response to some prompts. Taking an iterative approach with the LLM you're using will produce the best results. Second, LLM limitations. Previously, you learned that LLM output may sometimes be inaccurate, biased, insufficient, irrelevant, or inconsistent. You should critically evaluate all LLM output by asking yourself the following questions. Is the output accurate? Is the output unbiased? Does the output include sufficient information? Is the output relevant to my project or task? And finally, is the output consistent if I use the same prompt multiple times? If you identify any issues when you evaluate output, iterating on your initial prompt can often help you resolve these issues and get better output. To begin, if you notice there's any context missing in your prompt, add it. Your choice of words can also significantly impact an LLM's output. Using different words or phrasing in your prompts often yields different responses from the model. Experimenting with different phrasings can help you obtain the most useful output. Now that you know more about iterative prompting, let's consider an example. Suppose you work as a human resources coordinator for a video production company. The company wants to develop an internship program for students who are exploring careers in animation and motion graphics design. The company is based in the United States, in the state of Pennsylvania, my home state. Your team wants to partner with local colleges to provide internship opportunities for students in Pennsylvania. As a first step, you need to create a list of colleges in Pennsylvania that have animation programs. The list should include necessary details about the colleges and be in a well-organized format that your team can quickly review. Let's review an example using Gemini. Help me find colleges with animation programs in Pennsylvania. Next, we'll examine our output. The output lists colleges in Pennsylvania that have animation programs, along with further information related to these programs. This is helpful information, but it isn't structured in a way that your team can quickly reference when contacting the colleges. Organizing the information in a table would make it easier to read and understand, especially for stakeholders like your manager who may have limited time. We can iterate on the prompt by adding context to specify the desired format of the output. We'll type, "Show these options as a table." The output displays a table that provides useful information about the location of each college and the specific type of degree it offers. Now the list is in a well-organized format that's easier for your team to follow. Although the table contains most of the information your team needs, it doesn't include a key detail: whether the school is a public or private institution. Your company wants to offer internships to students from both public and private colleges. We'll add a new request for Gemini to include the relevant information in the table. Can you add a column showing whether they are public or private? Now the table includes a column that indicates whether a college is private or public. To share this information with your team in a format that's easy to review and understand, you can use the Export to Sheets feature. This will allow your team to easily access and analyze the data and make informed decisions based on the results. You should apply the same iterative approach to further tasks. When you develop prompts for additional tasks, be aware that previous prompts made in the same conversation can influence the output of your most recent prompt. If you notice this is happening, you may want to start a new conversation. Iteration is a key part of prompt engineering. By taking an iterative approach to prompting, you can leverage an LLM to provide the most useful output for your needs. Have you ever created something new by building upon previous examples? Perhaps you used a well-received report as a reference when writing a similar report. Or maybe you used a relevant and engaging website as a model when designing your own website. Examples are also useful for LLMs. Including examples in your prompt can help an LLM better respond to your request and can be an especially effective strategy to get your desired output. We're going to explore how to use examples in prompting, but first, let's briefly discuss the technical term shot. In prompt engineering, the word shot is often used as a synonym for the word example. There are different names for prompting techniques based on the number of examples given to the LLM. Zero-shot prompting is a technique that provides no examples in a prompt, while one-shot prompting provides one example. And few-shot prompting is a technique that provides two or more examples in a prompt. Because examples aren't included in zero-shot prompts, the model is expected to perform the task based only on its training data and the task description included in the prompt. Zero-shot prompting is most likely to be effective when you are seeking simple, direct responses. Zero-shot prompting may not be effective for tasks that require the LLM to respond in a more specific, nuanced way. Few-shot prompting can improve an LLM's performance by providing additional context and examples in your prompt. These additional examples can help clarify the desired format, phrasing, or general pattern. Few-shot prompting can be useful for a range of tasks. For example, you might use few-shot prompting to generate content in a particular style. Let's say you work for an online retailer. You need to write a product description for a new skateboard. You already have descriptions for existing products such as a bicycle and rollerblades. You want the skateboard description to follow a similar style and format. We'll start with a prompt that begins with some general instructions. Write a one-sentence description of a product. It should contain 2 adjectives that describe the product. We also specify that we want Gemini to review the examples we provide and write the description of the skateboard in the same style. Because this is a few-shot prompt, we need to provide examples that model the style we want. Each example contains a label indicating the product being described, a bicycle and rollerblades. And each description is one sentence long and contains two adjectives: sleek and durable for the bicycle, and smooth and stylish for the rollerblades. Next, we type the label skateboard. When we add this label and leave the product description blank, we indicate to Gemini that we want it to complete the description of the skateboard like it did with the other two product descriptions. Let's review our output. The output offers a product description of the skateboard that meets the criteria we requested and is in the same writing style and format as the examples we included in our prompt. In this case, 2 examples were enough to obtain useful results. But there is no definitive rule for the optimal number of examples to include in a prompt. Some LLMs can accurately reproduce patterns using only a few examples, while other LLMs need more. At the same time, if you include too many examples, an LLM's responses may become less flexible and creative, and they may reproduce the examples too closely. Experiment with the number of examples to include to get the best results for your specific task. Now you know a prompting technique that will help you get better quality output. Few-shot prompting is an effective strategy that can help you guide an LLM to generate more useful responses.
Hi, I'm Rachna. I'm a software engineer at Google. I work on a team called Central Knowledge Management, and we're responsible for making sure that developers have access to all the information that they need. One of the most important things to learn about in AI is prompting, which is just figuring out what text to input to get the response you want. One of the ways to find the most effective prompts for LLMs or large language models is to just iterate rapidly on them and try a wide variety of different prompts out. So maybe if it was not funny enough, the next time you could try prompting the LLM to make it more funny, or if it's too vague, you can use a prompt that specifically asks the AI not to be vague. And trying out a lot of different things this way will usually give you good results. One way you can change how you're using LLMs to allow them to be more creative or be more specific is just based on how much context you put in. So if you want the LLM to give you a pretty creative response, you can just try a very short prompt. If you want it to be very specific, you can put in a lot of examples and then it'll conform more to your examples. Another technique that's really interesting is chain of thought prompting, where you ask the model to reason out its own response. So if you're asking the model to follow a mathematical equation, you can ask it to first break it down into steps and then do the first step and then the second step and so on. And getting the LLM to do multiple steps can sometimes make it much more accurate. One slightly more unexpected prompting technique that we use is asking the model to react to its own responses. So sometimes I'll ask the model for a response and then I'll say, is this response vague? And then if it answers yes, then sometimes I'll throw that response out. So I'll let it do some of my work for me. The more you experiment and the more creative you are, the better. Keeping up with AI can feel a little bit like running on a treadmill sometimes, and it's always getting faster and faster, and there's so many new things that are changing, but I think that's also what makes it really fun.
You've learned a lot about writing prompts that you can apply to workplace tasks. In this section, we discussed large language model, or LLM, output. We examined how LLMs produce their output and potential issues you might encounter in the output. After this, we focused on a key principle of prompt engineering, creating clear and specific prompts. You learned just how important it is to specify what you want the LLM to do and to include supporting context to help it provide better output. We then went on to discover how to improve the quality of AI output through iteration. It's essential that you evaluate your output and then revise your prompt as needed. Lastly, we learned about few-shot prompting, which involves providing examples to guide the LLM. I want to offer a final tip before I go. We focused on prompting large language models. You can use the same general principles when you prompt other kinds of AI models too. For instance, the next time you want to use AI to generate an image, Try to be as clear and specific as possible, and then iterate to get closer to the output you want. It's been great guiding you through the process of prompt engineering. I hope you continue to apply and develop these skills as you leverage conversational AI tools in the workplace. To continue learning, I encourage you to explore the topic of using AI responsibly as part of Google AI Essentials.